Hey, welcome again to another session of Beyond the Title, where we meet with and speak to exceptional speakers with extraordinary experiences. Now, joining us today is Patrice Conxicoeur. Now, he is the CEO of HSBC Asset Management for Southeast Asia. Welcome, Patrice. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you very much. Good to see you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, I hope I did not butcher your last name. Please
You
forgive
did a
me if
great
I
job.
have. Very kind. Yeah, Patrice, no, this is always interesting to me when I get to meet with so many of our amazing guests around the world. Where are you based right now?
I'm in Singapore. I mean, beautiful, sunny, very warm Singapore.
Amazing. Now, I did see, for those of us who have not had the chance to visit Singapore or who have been dying to visit Singapore, you had this beautiful view behind you of the river. Or was it? No, it wasn't the river. I apologize. That was the sea, isn't it?
Oh, you weren't wrong. It's actually the mouth of the Singapore River that leads to the Marina Bay Sands Center and all this amazing skyline that leads into the sea. And to me, what is this quintessential Singapore view, which is, of course, the sea, but with lots and lots and lots of very big boats on it, and this screams business and activity, economic activity.
That's an amazing view to behold, of course, and great insight into what that actually signifies for Singapore too.
If the boats aren't moving, you might worry about the economy.
There we go. So Patrice, let's get to know you a bit better. But before that, what has been weighing on your mind the last few months, last 6 months to be exact? What's been taking up your mind space?
Well, it's been a very busy last 6 months in the sense that we are in a business and in an environment in which naturally there is never a dull day, but especially now we have lots of projects to juggle, lots of challenges to overcome, which overall I love. And then again, those projects are ambitious as they should be because we really have an amazing opportunity set in the region. Um, and yet, I have to admit, yep, 2020 and 2021 have been extraordinarily challenging for all of us as individuals, as family members, as business leaders, as colleagues. Um, and we have to juggle all of this. Yeah, never a dull day, really.
God bless you. God bless you. Now, you mentioned, there's so much to juggle. There's so much actually that you need to keep in mind as you're going through it. What is the reason that has helped you jump out of bed every morning? What is your ikigai?
That's an unfair question because, okay, a little secret about me. I'm borderline ADD, and this is something and this is an actual condition. This is something I've only realized
Oh,
and
wow.
grasped it fully, fairly, only recently, when some members of my family were actually properly diagnosed. And so this is a condition that comes with a few challenges, as I'm sure you can imagine, but it does have one major upshot, which is it usually comes with a fairly high level of energy. Um, and so getting up in the morning is never a problem. I'm dying to get up in the morning. And then again, the problem with ADD is that the ikigai changes from day to day. Uh,
True. Again, thank you so much for actually sharing that. Now, I know there's such a lot of stigma around ADD, but looking at you, what you've achieved in the last decade or so, how you've reached to this amazing pinnacle of your career, which I hope you're even going to go further, of course. But thank you so much for sharing that. Your condition or anyone's condition shouldn't be a precursor for them to say, I give up, I don't need it. And thank you for sharing that you're able to admit that and go ahead with it as well.
well, this is something I feel very strongly about, and we feel very strongly about. Yeah, we need to be able to show up in the office as we are, the
Yes.
true us. And we speak a lot about diversity and inclusion, but this is exactly what this is. And diversity means nothing without the inclusion bit. Um,
True.
and inclusion is exactly that. And also, we are in a business asset management where this diversity is such a wonderful source of value for us as a team, for our customers as a source of value, that we'd be truly, truly, truly stupid to forget about it or to undermine it.
Kudos to you, Patrice, and kudos to the HSBC team who has been able to support you and of course, create this ethos of how to actually be inclusive and not just talk about it, but actually walk the talk as well. This brings me to a very interesting part of my question. Now, the last year, even before that, but since last year, since we've been in this forced situation, we've had a lot more talk, a lot more engagement around mental health, mental stress. Now, I know a lot of companies deal with it differently. I'm very curious to know, you as a leader, HSBC as a company, how do you help alleviate some of that stress? How do you engage openly with your team around this?
Thanks. That's a wonderful question. And this is exactly what I was hinting at earlier while acknowledging the challenges of 2020 and 21. There's no unique answer to this, and there is no answer that will work for everyone. At my humble level with our little team here, I would say the key is to make sure exchanges are frequent, not necessarily structured, not necessarily formal, and try to make absolutely sure that this is a safe space where team members, colleagues can feel safe raising issues, concerns, sharing challenges. And whenever that happens, and as worrying or concerning as those issues might be, and let's acknowledge it, in some cases we're talking about genuine tragedies.
Yes.
Whenever that happens, I always feel that we must have done something right at some point if colleagues feel safe raising those issues. And they know that they do this safe in the knowledge that what they expect from us, from their management, is at the very, very, very least flexibility, understanding, a compassionate ear, and as much as possible support and help insofar as we can provide it. And of course, the organization provides, helplines, resources. We have an extremely active D&I program with multiple theme groups, employee groups, and you won't be surprised to find out that personally I'm a bit more interested in the mental health one. And because all of this really is part of a continuum, which is mental health and well-being. And in Singapore, more recently, one little part when we were playing is we've been helping City Mental Health Alliance to incorporate its Singapore chapter, and I'm actually very happy to say that we in HSBC are one of the founding members in Singapore, and this is hot off the press. The incorporation took place yesterday. If this can contribute alongside all the actions and activities that we do and that like-minded organizations do to make our workplaces better places for our colleagues, then we must have done something right.
How can BC, how can Reshape, how can Insider support you with this alliance? How can we promote the work that you're doing with the City Mental Health Alliance? How can we make more awareness around this?
Awareness is really an important point because a lot of this is about sharing best practice, sharing experience, and sometimes something as simple as one of us or some of us acknowledging their own difficulties or their own challenges, and sharing how we may have overcome them or not in some cases, and what happened. That alone can be helpful. Let's bear in mind also that City Mental Health Alliance is a global organization. It started in the UK.
Correct.
Chapters today in the UK, in Hong Kong, in Australia, and now in Singapore. Very happily. So anything that can promote this cooperation between different chapters and like-minded organizations, like-minded associations, I think is a positive. And that means engagement with civil society, with whenever possible governments and charities, and other organizations. But really, really, the key here is we want the workplace to be a safe place, and as a result, a better place for everyone.
Awesome. That we can definitely use our influence and impact for good. And I definitely believe this message is a lot more important right now, especially now,
Absolutely,
to be shared.
absolutely.
Thank you. Right. So going from there, I can only imagine how busy you are, how busy the day gets, and I'm hoping you're having some time to yourself to just, you know, cool down, relax, exercise your mind into something outside of work. But what is that one app that helps you stay sane and structured in this current time?
That's an interesting question because, as a Gen X who's the father of teenage kids whose sanity I feel is always threatened by social media and similar apps,
Yes.
uh, the initial reaction may not be to react positively to a question like this one. Um, but jokes aside, of course, I'm a daily user myself of multiple apps and even social media. Um, but I don't have a single answer to this. It really is a matter of purpose. So be it news aggregation for news aggregation and filtering, but also on the more pleasurable side of life. I'm a bit of a wine buff, and I spend some time on Delectable, for instance, which I'm a big
Nice.
fan of.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a movie buff as well, and IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes are never far from my thumb. And always amazed by the amount of information that there is in there. And I'm a daily user of Tidal on the musical side. Uh,
Oh wow.
there you go.
I know titled, yeah. And you mentioned movies and IMDb, of
Mm.
course. I do read a lot of reviews. I do read a lot about the storyline, the director's cuts. Um, Curious, if life were a movie, what character do you think you would play?
So, as a movie buff, that's a hard one to answer because there's lots of characters that come to mind, but not necessarily ones I'd like to play. One of my favorite movies is the Godfather, and I certainly wouldn't want to be Michael Corleone. Um, Equally, I'm a huge fan of Blade Runner, for instance. But think about the character portrayed by Harrison Ford, Rick Deckard. He's a bit of a sad figure, isn't he? Uh, um, so, if I get to pick one, maybe one that always leaves me deeply impressed, and that's a movie I've seen a few times, is the character played by Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men.
Oh,
And if you
right.
haven't seen
Wow, that's a
if you
nice
haven't seen that
one.
movie, haven't seen the movie, watch it. The movie must be, I don't know, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, and it's
It
never been
is.
more important, more relevant to the times we're in. And and I'm not even sure the character has a name because for the life of me I can't remember it. And he's in the frame in all the time.
I apologize. I wouldn't even remember the character anymore. But it is an old movie. It's a beautiful movie. It's a lovely classic.
It is.
But you know, there are quite a few old movies I do watch with my kids, but I can't remember watching them or seeing the title pop up on Netflix or Amazon Prime. So I'm wondering now where that actually plays.
That's a good one. Well, I probably have a DVD somewhere.
For those of you who've not
That still
watched 12
exists.
Angry Men, go to IMDb right now, try to find where it's playing. It's an amazing movie and a huge referral and recommendation by Patrice. So go ahead and watch that. And of course, if you know and remember the name of the character, please do drop it in our comments because I'd love to know as well.
And I'll check on IMDb immediately after this conversation.
So, um, going a little bit more back in our way back machine, what started all off for you, Patrice? What was your first job?
So my first job in this industry, and not counting internships and that sort of thing, I was a sub assistant portfolio manager in a very small joint venture in Tokyo. Um, and that was so that was about 30 years ago. And of course, the irony of this story is that I think the Nikkei 225, the benchmark index of Tokyo Stock Exchange, just came back very recently to the level it was on my first day on the job.
Oh
Um,
wow.
because they've gone through the mother of all bear markets, and
Yes.
and the index has not even finished recovering. So that little snippet of information tells you one thing: is that it was a much more formative experience than it was a lucrative experience. I've certainly learned a lot, and particularly learned a lot about being skeptical about what's being said, and about the way markets behave. And because back in those days, we would receive tons of paper every day. Those were usually sell-side research, and every other document was telling us why the Nikkei 225 would go back to 39,000 pretty much anytime soon. And of course, it's been 30 years, and we're all still waiting.
It is going to happen. It's going to happen. We just need to wait a couple more decades there.
You're
Uh,
you're 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 younger than me. It's probably going to be more in your lifetime than mine.
you're young, Patrice. You're young, and I'm definitely believing that those lovely teenage sons of yours are going to keep you even younger as time goes by. um, but so you did mention, you're from Grenoble, from France, uh, and your first job was in Tokyo. So what gave you that bug? What started your travel bug?
That started a long time before, and I have my parents to thank for this. Really, I think the very first travel must have been in Tunisia when I was a toddler,
Wow.
and the only reason why I remember that is because my parents told me. Of course, I don't have any living memory of it, um, but yeah, that started back then. And then once you've got the bug, there's no taking it out of you. And that same bug brought me back to Tokyo. Almost 10 years later, and I've never left the region. Since then, it's been Tokyo, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore, and a few other places around.
There's almost a romantic side to be able to travel, live around the world, experience other cultures the way you are right now, Patrice. And for those of us who are missing traveling a lot, seeing different places, we're seeing it through the lens of course, our guests at BTT.
Yeah, yeah. One day somebody will walk me down the aisle and tell me, "This is your captain speaking." this, this is the dream we all have right now, and it is indeed very romantic.
Well, it won't be soon, but when we do get to travel, I'm hoping you're coming out to Budapest and meeting me here.
That sounds excellent. Looking forward to it.
So, looking at the role we've all had to play in the recent few months, what has been one of the biggest leadership challenges that you've had to face now?
I think right now the fact that most of us are operating remotely, um, uh, keeping it all together, and it's not really physically but mentally, culturally, is really the challenge. And it's particularly difficult, I find, when we have newcomers, um, who don't get the chance to have these coffee machine or water cooler talks, where the real cues about the etiquette in the office is being learned. And the fact that there is no office anymore doesn't mean there is no etiquette. Um, so yes, keeping it all together, keeping the culture, keeping the interest together, and the commitment, I think is the challenge that every manager in the world right now has. Um, and and this is, of course, in spite of, um, nobody has dropped their ambitions. Nobody has, the budgets and the plans have not been reduced. Far from it. Um, then the projects are still there. And to some extent, actually, this is a blessing. Because if the projects weren't there, then it would be even harder, I think. I think teams come together through projects, through shared experiences, sometimes through suffering together, but never better than through succeeding together. Um, but it's the togetherness that's missing right now. And when people talk about Zoom fatigue, I think that's really what they're talking about. So keeping it all together in spite of this, I think, is our number one leadership challenge today.
Awesome, awesome, and this is why we have StreamYard and not Zoom for our call. No, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's one of the things that, you know, the project like Reshape, that, and I'm grateful that you've agreed to join us at Reshape Summit this year. It's been an amazing ride to see the entire company come together at Insider to build this huge impact that we are trying to drive with all these amazing communities around the world, all these amazing companies around the world, all the thought leaders like yourself who, want to share their impact through Reshape as a vehicle. And grateful that you're also open talking about, how you are dealing with some of the biggest challenges and the challenges you're going through yourself. Now, Patrice, I've gotten to know a little bit more about you, and I'm really happy that I've got to know so much about you. But what is that one unique fact about you that we don't know about yet?
Oh my God, I hope I have shared a few already. And I'm not quite sure there are many more. I don't know, maybe you should ask my wife about this one.
That's the next BTT. I'm expecting, Mr. and Mr. and Mrs. Conxicoeur to join our lovely BTT and get to know the different side of you. But I'm also curious because I know exactly, when I talk to my sons and ask them, "Do you know what your dad does for work?" and they say, "Well, you talk a lot." uh, that's exactly what they think I do.
Uh,
um,
I have a similar anecdote with my daughter. Just a few years back, she was asking me to describe a typical day, and so I described it, and then she went, "So, okay, Dad, so you write emails and you talk to people. That's not a real job."
if all kids take out of, yeah, work is basically sending out emails and talking to people. Can I ask you how old was she when she said that to you?
She must have been 8 or 9, no
Oh,
more
God
than that.
bless. Such a beautiful age. Such a beautiful age. God bless. A huge shout out to your family there. Patrice, it was amazing having you. Thank you so much for sharing so much about you with our listeners. I really look forward to the day we get to meet up in person, but I also look forward to, having your thought leadership at Reshape Summit this year, and sharing with us about sustainable investments. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Hey guys, for all of you who've been watching us, thank you so much for joining us again. It was an amazing conversation with Patrice. If you want to catch him, join us at reshapesummit.com. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy, guys. Speak to you next week.